Okay. I'm very angry at me saying this, but I think I regret being a Star Wars fan. Just like I would have regretted being a Call of Duty fan. Reason why I don't have regrets about not being a Call of Duty fan. Call of Duty would have absolutely made me a more toxic person. Call of Duty has some very vulgar community, and the games themselves aren't that great after 5 either. I'm talking objective quality. Make money, and here's the problem. Care about a subjective matter. I think there is objective qualities every piece of media why people are for trash. I think subjectivity is the way of life. You have to be there are objective qualities to games. Granted, I don't think Call of Duty would have been a healthy franchise. Like, I think there were only 4 good Star Wars movies. The other 5 are trash in the saga. I guess you can say one of the spin-off movies are good. So 5 good movies. Bad ones. Minus the Darth Vader scene in Rogue One due to the fact that it tried portraying Vader as a macho man. Because I became a Star Wars fan and I regret it, just similar to how Obi-Wan regretted. I granted I wasn't put into the Star Wars fandom since birth. And I wish I was more of a Harry Potter fan because I was more of a Star Wars fan. Immediately saw traded everything I hated. That's the issue. Now I'm under persecution from Disney because of what they've done. Weren't for me becoming a Star Wars fan, I probably would have never turned away from Disney as hard as I did. You know what? I mean, is also glad I became a Star Wars fan. Even though I regret it, I'm glad I became one because then I got the mind of a writer. Because I got the mind of a writer, a storyteller, I got to know what actual storytelling is, what not to do. The thing, though, I I do think I would have regretted being a Call of Duty fan, but a part of me thinks I would have been glad I was a Call of Duty fan because, granted, this is where it taught me good storytelling and writing techniques. It actually Disney, because of how badly they wrote those stories. Call of Duty, I would have wasted a shit ton of money on those games. And for what? Play terribly made games that take the money out of you? Just buy a full price game. Don't spend $100 on a freaking skin. Granted, you might be like, but what are you talking? No. Being a Call of Duty fan would have never taught me good game design. Being a Star Wars fan did. Because unlike Call of Star Wars fandom, they actually made video essays exposing how bad Disney is and what not to do when writing films and why Disney films are not the way you write. You should never like Disney. It'd be like George Lucas instead. Call of Duty would have made me used to actual Call of Duty would have made me used to, well, bad game design, and thus I would never learn what true good game design is. Moving on. If you're gonna make a game, you need to have good game design. Call of Duty doesn't have good game design. Granted, there were a few moments where they said it was badly designed, but only thing they complained about is stuff that isn't related to game design at all. Make a game, well-designed game, you have to have reward loops. We have to make sure that there's an actual difficulty spike that's fair for the game. If you're gonna make a Soulsborne, fine, you can make it like this. If you're gonna make a platformer, this. Sometimes it's like this. You need to make it so that the game world is well designed. You need to make the cutscenes work. A lot of things that go into a game. Keep in mind, I do think Nintendo, being a Nintendo fan, taught me some aspects of good game design. And you know what? Because I was a Nintendo fan, I ended up like not the Kamala and Terza shit. No, I would not. That would not have taught me good game design. There was a Super Smash Bros. Nintendo fan in my universe. I got taught basic ass game design principles. Playing the games, about the difficulty spike, about how to introduce new ability, how to make your levels actually designed well, beginning levels and end level designed well, through playing those games. I learned how to make a cinematic game work through Sony games. Granted, Nintendo games weren't the only ones. You got Ratchet & Clank, Little Big Planet, Lego TT game, etc, that also did that. But the more cinematic games also told me you could tell more interesting story in those games, and that are more mature and more complex. Or even just family friendly, but also more complex, like Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. And granted, the games I played, I'm glad I played. Doom 2 also taught good game design through the way you play the game. See, you don't try to, if you make game design, there is one aspect game franchise from Nintendo I do think has a manipulative game design. And that's ready for this? Animal Crossing, and that's only because your villagers leave and weeds die growing it the longer you're gone. You even have to create a new island if you're gone forever. Yeah. But granted, that's Animal Crossing. I do like that game. It's just I would be willing to get into it if they made an ultimate version of it. Combine aspects of all 4 prior titles. But granted, a lot of people say you want never to lose Celine on Pokemon. Well, yeah, because you want a save file. I have had the urge of deleting some Pokemon files occasionally, starting over, so I don't really think that's true. Whereas, I see Call of Duties as a manipulative game. People were rats. And here's the thing, right? People were rats. The people who not only were Activision rats, but they were the cheese. Or if you were a lab test, or here's another mentality. Activision lab tested on their players and you were the rat. Either methodology worked. We're the cheese and they're the rats, or we're the rats and they're Activision's the scientists. I don't think the same could be said for the Super Smash Bros. And Nintendo, for a majority of their games. Here's the thing, outside of Animal Crossing, but I do think. But let's talk about back into Star Wars right now. The reason why I regret being a Star Wars fan, but I'm glad I became one. Ready for this? The reason why I'm glad is because I ended up learning, on top of good game design, principles that inspired me to make similar good game design. On top of that, it also inspired me to make better stories, which could translate into my games, into movies, game side of things, not only having game design, but having amazingly well-crafted stories. It's because of The Last Jedi's failure to tell a good story, and the fact that the prequels were ass except for Revenge of the Sith, the fact that there were some issues returned, the fact that the sequel trilogy was a hot mess from the start. Debatable. You could have whatever opinion you want. I learned how to tell a good story. How to not write stories. Because of that, I ended up listening to gourmet content that told you what you needed to do when writing a story. Now, part of me is also regretful at the fact that I was a Nintendo fan, or a COD fan, but I was glad. All of me is glad I was it, because I did learn good game design principles. Add that with Star Wars, and you have a good game design and good storytelling mystique. Here's my issue with, however, the part of me that regrets being a Nintendo fan, the whole Shift situation, weren't for the movie yesterday in 2013. Wait, no, that's not right. 2019, what was it? At least 2019, never mind. 2020, if it weren't for my dad showing me yesterday and telling me I remember Mario, Zelda, Kirby, and Metroid, it would be erased. Mario 3D All-Stars comes out, and then memes start propping up that reinforce it. My dad warning me of that. I don't think I would have been fully glad I was a Nintendo fan. The Super Smash Bros. Variant. I am glad I grew up with this Super Smash Bros. Version of Nintendo. Not Kamala and Turzo, or the Super Kamala or Turzo cousins, or the Super Turzo cousins, whatever the hell those guys are. I would not have been glad if I grew up with those. Those would have been cursed. Especially if a finale game has a gang rape scene in it. Version of Ultimate. Now, Kamala and Turzo's and Nintendo game are not better than Mario and Luigi's. People post-shift will watch this video, go, how the hell did this guy know about what Kamala and Turzo despite only being exposed to Mario? They're gonna consider what the hell actually happened with me, and they might even investigate me. Here's the thing, you gotta realize. Because I was shown yesterday in the way I was, I think I might be, and granted, I think because these are still tingling, it's telling me that the whole possibility of and the fact that pictures reappeared on Switch, it might be working. But I need a drink. My throat is sore. It's looking, yeah, sore throat, honestly, not, but I'm not happy. Don't think I would have been glad if I grew up as, granted, if I grew up as a God fan, I would not have regretted it, but I think I would have regretted it, and I would not have been glad about it. Granted, if I grew up a Disney fan only, and I had no interaction with Star Wars at all, unlike what I actually happened with me, where I watched any animated film, regardless of what studio made it, if I was only watching Disney, granted, I don't think I'd be glad I was a Disney fan either. Or I would regret it. I think I would be embarrassed if I was a Call of Duty fan. I think I would have been embarrassed if I was a Disney fan. And that's the issue. I prefer more deeper. Star Wars was interesting. It was complex. It was generally a good story that I respect, that I craved, or Disney ended up buying it and ruining it for all to see. I think here's the thing, though. If I did, if I will. I'm going to say right here, right now. In terms of music, this is why I cannot be part of the music industry. I'm not happy I grew up in the era I did. I'm recording. Okay.
Okay. No, you're just gonna keep doing it.
And this is the reason why I think, writing wise, I don't think I'm glad I grew up in the era of music I grew up in. Because the era of music I grew up in, was ass. It was pure ass out of straight out of asshole. Which means it is ass. And that's not what I want. I want quality. The ideal to see for something better. This is the issue, right? You see, I could have very well became more of a Harry Potter fan, a Star Wars fan. I chose Star Wars and I regret it, but I'm glad I did. Here's the issue, right? I'm thinking about moving back to Harry Potter. You ready for this? Star Wars doesn't end in the happiest or saddest of endings. It ends super weird and convoluted. Basically, Chosen One, and also has some darker aspects, which is why it's a bit depressing. Basically, Rey's the only Jedi left. Granted, she's also the only Palpatine left, so that's up for debate. She took the Skywalker name. Granted, on top of that, you also have the fact that Rey, there's no Jedi left in the galaxy, no Sith. No true Jedi, no true Sith. No rebellion or first resistance, no First Order or Empire, no CIS, no nothing. Just the Mandalorians all left, it's implied. Maybe the Yuzhong Vong is out there somewhere waiting to strike in another pseudo 10 and 11 and 12. Which is, if it's directed by Dark Phoenix 6 director, that's gonna be so weird. We'll rip that one a new one. Rip those films a new one, by the way.
And then we have Harry. I'm not let me record. Okay, back to Star Wars. Let's look at the past. Chosen One, Anakin. Granted, there was no mention of the Chosen One prophecy in the sequel. None. In fact, they even called Rey a nobody. They literally said, even though she was a Palpatine, she was a nobody. That their parents sold her off for drinking money. Which is very weird, thank you, for making that terrible writing story and retconning it by calling her a Palpatine. She had no place in this story, yet she was part of the story. Which, granted, very weird. I would have preferred if they told Kyra's story, made her the reincarnation of Anakin and a direct descendant of Luke Skywalker. She could still be the Chosen One and actually fulfill that prophecy correctly. But no, they had to do Rey's story. Granted, I'm really mad at that. I'm really mad. But let's look at the past, right? The original trilogy. Luke Skywalker did redeem Darth Vader, and you know what he did? He went back, killed his own brother. He attempted to kill nephew Ben Solo in his sleep, not even doing what, even because he sensed what he could do, he could become. Not being Luke Skywalker, but Jake Skywalker went away on a faraway island when his friends needed him, outed away, green alien titty milk. He even tried to redeem Kylo despite being closer to the light than Vader was. You suck, you lose, go home. And died from getting tired. That is not Luke Skywalker. And then you have Anakin. I'm going to be more merciful to the prequel films. Not Rogue One. Not any other interpretation of Vader to sub-eye besides the Jedi games. At least then they didn't at least admitted that Vader was suffering behind the mask. If you want lines. And because of that, let's compare the Chosen One from both Harry and Star Wars. The Chosen One of Star Wars is generally an immature person. He was very immature, to say the least. He said really weird stuff. Right? He said he did some really bad stuff because he already grew attachment, which made him no longer be able to be a Jedi. Because of that, even though they trained him anyway, the reason why the Duel of Fates happened was because Qui-Gon survived, Anakin wouldn't have turned, but because he died, he turned, and he got the worst mentor possible in Obi-Wan. Granted, Jar Jar Binks is an annoyance as all ever. And this is where the story goes dark. Basically, turns to the dark side, waters younglings, a dick to his subordinates, and blowing up of Alderaan. He got his limb chopped off, had a weird cybernetic suit while Obi-Wan thought he was dead, which is why Obi-Wan got bounties placed on him. This is why I generally don't think Star Wars is sweeter than Harry. And this is why I'm converting back to Harry Potter fandom. Because I just got all the movies and game books again. I have Hogwarts Legacy. thinking about getting the Quidditch game. The reason why I think Harry Potter is generally a better IP. Are you ready for this? Compare Anakin's arc, that gets ruined because Palpatine comes back, and the one that fulfills prophecy is an absolute nobody. A Palpatine, not even a Skywalker that calls herself a Skywalker. They don't even mention the Chosen One prophecy, so you can't say Rey is the Chosen One. Nowhere in the frickin' movies. Guess what they do? Made Harry the boy who lived. Was he the boy who lived? Granted, I was wrong about Harry Potter once. I'm not going to be wrong again. Granted, when he was old enough, because the wizarding world was not as dogmatic as the Jedi, actually had real students, actually had allowed for relationships and stuff, like a typical school experience, actually had interesting stories. It was interesting, right? And this is why I think Harry Potter is a much better story. Not only does it get praised by Hagrid, he goes on so many adventures. And then when the story reaches its climax of the books, eventually, even though he almost dies, almost died in Deathly Hallows, got an afterlife and saw Dumbledore and got revived. And there was a final climax where Harry ended up killing Voldemort. Warner Bros. Version, not the Universal one. Whatever. He broke the Elrond, and what happened? He ended up raising his children, which leads into the Cursed Child, which I'm about to read. This is why Harry is a lot happier than Chosen One turns into the dark side and only fulfills the prophecy, redeeming himself, only to have, after thinking he was too far gone, because he was manipulated by Palpatine, only to realize ready? Only to have Palpatine transfer his Force empty vessel clone in Exegol and continue plotting to destroy the New Republic. And you can't make this up. Star Wars had the weirdest ending of all time. It's gone to the point where Harry has the high ground. Because of that, Harry sold millions of books. Jari J took Luke's character and put it in a trash compactor. I hate saying that as a Star Wars fan. I hate admitting it. Even though the Jedi games were amazing, Harry Hogwarts Legacy had some interesting stuff that was a little more sophisticated than the Jedi games. Because of that, I have to give the Jedi games only, even though they're good games, they only perpetuate this dark vibe emanating through it, not a bright, hopeful vibe. You know how the whole saying, the video, morality is dead in Hollywood killed it, goes for morality is dead and YouTubers killed it. Both are kind of true. In the Hollywood one, why not occupy your time with stories that are brighter and actually more uplifting? Right now, Star Wars is not one of those stories. Harry Potter is. so is Lord of the Rings. Why would I occupy my... Let's go into the past, right? Harry Potter also had Fantastic Beasts. Watch the first one. I'm about to watch the second two now that I got the 4 Blu-rays of them. I was in my edge phase, anti-magic edge phase. I realize it's not exactly the worst thing in the world. And then, what do you have here, right? Good story. And sad. Look at, well, what are we looking at? Then we're gonna look, yes, the Acolyte, or what I say, the Crapolite, 1 season too many. So weird what they did with the Acolyte. Basically celebrate the triumph of evil over good. Made it so that the dark side looked cool and negated the entire purpose of George Lucas' original 6 movies. Honestly, in my eyes, there are only 6 Star Wars movies. There were nothing after that. Not even the Clone Wars. Maybe if you want another trilogy, do the Cal Kestis one. Fine. I'll give you that one. It's basically the Star Wars Jedi games and the first 6 movies in my eyes. That's pretty much what's canon. In my head. And granted, Star Wars is nauseating to keep up with. This fandom has abandoned actual sincerity. It's devolved into toxic joke baiting. I'm part of because of how weird this franchise is. Now it's permanently stuck to me. I have to continue on with these jokes, making fun of this franchise. I mean, look at this, right? Like, do you really think a sane company would make Papa Palp's Sith coin or only constantly meme the prequels in the original trilogy and make this Andor meme about racist what was the word? PB&J is what I'm thinking of. Morning time epic. George R. Studios Plus. Oh, hi Mitchell. Cousin Mitchell's watching. At that rate, I'm honestly starting to wonder. Is okay now? No. No longer.